guys, so at this stage in your work process, you have a box, you have a lid, and now it's time to begin your designs on the outside of your box. You guys have chosen a theme and you have identified what that theme looks like. So on your final sketch, you have components of that theme drawn out and where you want them. For this project, I want you to focus on creating your design using applique. Applique is when you sculpt things and attach them to the surface. You apply them, applique. Applique just means to apply in French. And so I have here sculpted out a few of the designs that I have drawn on my final sketch. My theme is ceramics. And so I have an apron that I've made. I've got a little rolling pin and I've got a piece of the canvas fabric sort of sculpted out laying here. And so I'm gonna show you how I go about attaching these things. Now, the first thing that I'm gonna attach is the apron, and I actually have it draped over the handle of a fettling knife, so that way I have like a nice curve to it. And so I'm waiting for that to firm up just a little bit, but not too much. Obviously, because my apron is a piece of fabric, I wanted to make it nice and thin. So I've rolled the clay very thin, but also I need to be aware of like it drying too quickly on me. It's gonna become leather hard pretty fast. Same thing for the pieces that I've cut for the ties of the apron and the neck loop for the apron. I've mapped it out on my box where I want it. Not sure if you'll be able to see that, but I've sketched some lines on the surface. I want it wrapping around the corner there. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to slip and score to attach the apron. Again, I do want it to have this like folding or this like rippling effect. And so when I slip and score it, I'm gonna pay close attention to how that wraps around here. So to slip and score, I'm going to need a needle tool. And for the sake of slip, I'm just gonna use some water. You're welcome to try this, but there will be slip available to you. You guys know that slip is watered down clay, so if I apply a little bit of extra water on the surface, essentially I'm creating slip right on the surface. So like I said, I have this mapped out here. I have a needle tool. I'm gonna start to score up the surface of where I kind of have this like outline drawn. If I end up scoring in an area that I didn't want to be shown, I can always smooth it out once I have my piece appliqued. All right, so as you can probably see, I have an area around the corner scored out. My box is in between leather hard and plastic. It's still pretty cold to the touch, and it's not super hard. I could definitely put a fingerprint in it if I pushed hard on it, and so I just want to be cautious. Now I'm scoring the underside of the apron. I did make this piece of clay pretty thin, so I'm not going to score too deep. I want to be careful that I don't go through the other side. I can always fix that, but I don't want to go through the other side. I'm spraying a little bit of water on the surface there, and that's going to act as my slip when the clay comes into contact. So I'm setting this down in the area that I want it to be. Again, retaining that little ripple that I want so it stands up off of the surface. And in the areas where it's attaching and touching the surface of the box, I'm pressing and wiggling as I go. So I'm definitely going to need to smooth out some areas where the score marks are visible, but I can turn this around to give you a little bit of a view of what that looks like attached. So as you can see, I have that nice little ripple happening, so it does stand up off of the surface of the box, which is going to make it look so much more interesting when it's done. So that is slipped and scored. Now I'm going to work on attaching the ties that you would tie around your back and the neck loop. I'm choosing to let it gap a little bit for a little bit of extra detail. These areas are going to be much more fragile by doing this, but it's going to make it look super cool. Okay, so I have my apron finished. Again, lots of rough edges that will need to be smoothed over. The clay is super soft, especially on the small strips, and so I'm gonna wanna wait for that to get a little bit more firm before I try to touch it and mess with it and smooth it and clean it. So I'm gonna move on to attaching my piece of canvas, my fake canvas, and my rolling pin, which I'm gonna do on this side. I also need to be careful now that I've attached something on this side. It's not a great idea to just flip it and set it down. And so I need to be very conscious of how I position the box in order to do this. So I'm gonna actually position it with the opening on top. So I have my piece of canvas here. I have my rolling pin. I'm gonna line up my canvas where I want it in my box. Looks about good to me. And again, just for reference for how to put it back on there once I score it. And then it's gonna help me know where to score on the box itself. A little bit of water in place of my slip. Lining this up with my outline. I'm just gonna press and wiggle into place. This piece I've decided to just have it lay flat because I'm already having the three-dimensional rolling pin sort of protruding from the side. All right, now time to figure out where I want this. So I think I want it right about there. So I'm just gonna kind of press it into place. And once again, score where that's going to sit. Line it up for some wigs. So there you have the side where I have the canvas and the rolling pin. Again, I will be going back and cleaning up all of these like little rough areas, but I'm gonna wait for them to get a little bit more leather hard before I do that. There you have it.